Welcome to Stories of Hope. This is a podcast by the Dream Center.
Where you will hear from people who have stories that once seemed hopeless.
People whose stories of redemption and life transformation are so powerful, they can only be possible by the power of Jesus. Hey everybody, welcome back to Stories of Hope. Very excited about this week's episode as we are joined by Robbie Rogers, who is a very faithful volunteer with the Dream Center and has a really just cool story about how she got involved. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to get this going and have you get to be another part of kind of some storytelling for the Dream Center that you've gotten to do back at Dream Big and now podcast. And so I'd love to start off and just give you a chance of telling everybody how you got involved with the Dream Center to begin with and kind of what that looked like from the beginning.
Okay. 2 years ago, I needed a little extra help for Santa Village. Mm-hmm. So I come up here for Santa Village and did the classes. Yep. And in the classes, we were talking about, especially in the What's the Dream Center About class, they were talking about volunteering and everything. And that year, it was, I think, the first big year after COVID. So, So there really wasn't that many classes.
Yeah, right.
And it was really hard for somebody that was working to also have classes.
Yes.
So that's when we started talking about crocheting, which is what I love to do. So I was like, well, what about a crocheting class? Yeah. And so we started on Wednesday during the day, and then somebody was like, can you do a Tuesday night class? Sure.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah.
So that's how we got started.
That's awesome. And it's amazing. It's like the most, like one of the highest attended classes. People love get to spend time with you, and we can talk about this more in a minute, but I know that there's just like been great community that has been formed inside of that for you and for the ladies. And it is really cool to get to watch. And as our team focuses on getting like storytelling and getting content around campus, I feel like half of our one of our folders is crochet videos and pictures, just because there's so many people, so it's always great for us to be able to get video
last week we ended up having like 14. We normally try to stop it at 10. We had 14 people.
Okay.
But there was like 4 of them that was kind of like doing their own thing. They just come in there for like the environment or whatever and to crochet projects. But we just did the NICU hats. We made NICU hats for Heart Health Month for the month of February.
That's amazing.
So, and then this month we're studying on like different blankets and stuff. And then we're going to do, there's several bookmarks and stuff that we're doing for Easter. Yeah. So for April.
That's amazing.
That's so sweet.
Also, this feels like a great time. How did crocheting become something that you like love and are passionate about? And
I do senior care.
Yes.
So I'm one of them people who love to study. So I've always been one of those people who read and study and stuff. Yeah. Well, you can't do that and do senior care because it's always, Robbie, do this, Robbie, do this. So I needed something that I could lay down and pick up. But a lot of times I end up doing third shift. Right. So if I'm doing third shift and I'm trying to stay awake, I have to have something that makes my fans go. So somebody got me a yarn, and I was like, let's do it. So I took my tutorials on YouTube and taught myself how to do it.
And then just kept doing it?
Kept
learning? That's awesome.
I ended up doing several different vendor sales this past year, and I made like $5,000.
Okay, wow.
Out of just selling and crocheting.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
well, if there's your plug. If anybody needs some crocheted stuff, come hit up Robbie, because that's awesome. I love that. Well, that's beautiful. And I think it is really cool to see. I walk through every once in a while and see class and say hi. And you can just tell how like much joy it brings you, how like alive you feel in that setting.
Like last week we ended up having like somebody come in and needed to talk, like almost like a counseling session. And it was like, so you know, if especially with it being a bunch of women, you know, you can do that. And,
right.
You know, they can get help with something they're needing to get help with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So, well, thank you for classes and for
absolutely
feeling passionate about it. And I think that's one of my favorite things is watching people get to operate in something that they're passionate about in teaching class, because that's really cool. Instead of just like, can you teach a subject just to make sure we have class happen? Mm-hmm. It's always really cool to see people step into this is what I actually care about, and I get to share that gift with people. So,
especially since you are so passionate about our mission.
Yes.
And that really, it's one thing to like, Freddie saying, like just teach a class, but you are so bought in And that shows. It really does.
Yeah, it's true. That's awesome. Okay, so let's pivot there into some of the personal testimony side of things that we talked about. You know, the whole reason that we do this podcast every week and do multiple seasons a year is just we know that we have a huge pool of people who have amazing stories of what the Lord has done, is doing in their life, and just come from different backgrounds. And so I'd love to give you just a little bit to share some of your testimony. And kind
of. I grew up in a very, very Christian home. Like, we went to Bob Jones for high school.
Okay.
And, I mean, wore skirts, didn't have a TV.
Right.
Very, very, very strict. That's why you never see me in a skirt. Even to dream big, I wore pants.
That's amazing.
That's the reason. September 11th, I'm going to start my story here. September 11th of 2006.
Okay.
A preacher walked into my church, and God told me that I was going to marry him.
Okay.
And 3 months later, we were married. We got married on New Year's Eve at midnight around a bonfire. It was like the most unique thing ever. And we were happy for 6 months.
Yeah.
We did not follow God's path. And in the state of South Carolina, there's nothing for domestic there is something for domestic abuse. There is nothing for mental, verbal, or emotional abuse. It is ignored, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate for making that aware, because bruises can heal.
Yeah, right.
But the emotional and mental thing, I'm still suffering from PTSD with.
Yeah, right.
But I never physically got hurt. So
yeah, right.
But I lived in it for 12 years.
Okay.
And for 12 years, it was an everyday thing. My son, James, which is 17, it was almost nonverbal.
Wow.
He really struggled with talking, with speaking in front of people, and it escalated. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Situation. We were camping on Mother's Day in 2016, and I had caught my husband in a lie. And I went for a walk, and I said, God, you got to harden my heart.
Right.
Every time I keep going back, and I can't do this no more. And that was the day I left. Ended up leaving with nothing. Mm-hmm. And the next Sunday, I went to church, and the preacher was preaching about Peter. He was preaching how Peter was on top of the roof, and he was praying for Paul, and he was praying, and he said, God, I'm hungry. Mm. And God gave him a vision of the doves, and they lowered the sheet, and it had all the unclean birds. And he said, but God, I can't eat that because that's unclean. And he said, no, what I touch, right, I make clean. And that hit me. And Pastor Dean at the time, he like stopped, and he said, somebody in here, God just told you that your situation is going to change your life. And I was like, he didn't say that in the second service because I was in there, but he did say it in the third service. And I was just like, what? Why did he add that? And God said, because your situation is different. It's not about what the next guy's going to do or what he's not going to do or whatever. It's what you're going to put in for what I'm going to do for you.
Right.
And that's when I started going for life coaching. Women have to figure out that they're okay to be by themselves. Mm. They're okay to be strong enough not to worry about the next boyfriend or the next whatever. Find a love for yourself. Yeah. And if you can love yourself enough, then God's going to show you who he is, because we're all beautiful in his eyes.
Right.
So when another thing was when we hide behind everything. We hide behind our hair. We hide behind our looks. We hide behind our husband or boyfriend or car or house or whatever. Yeah. But when I left it all. Yeah. Like, I didn't have a husband to hide behind. And he was on the outside the perfect husband. Like, everybody everybody thought so and still think so.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of abuse that goes along with having living in the small area.
Right.
But when you have all that taken away, you have to find your beauty.
Yeah, right.
In something, and that beauty comes from God.
Yeah, it's true. And you just come to a point of you have an option to let the world define like what is actually who you are, what you like, how you carry yourself and all the things, or the opposite of like letting Jesus not even start to tell you who you are, just starting to love him and choose the things that he is to start shaping your heart and shaping your life. And then it becomes this, which this is all like, I say this as personal testimony of my life for the last 3 years, like going through a divorce myself, finding all the like running straight to Jesus. Like we'll never forget the moment of like, I have an option right now to just let this thing destroy me and let myself crumble underneath the pressure of it. Or I can dig into the Word of God who tells me exactly who he is. I can dig into my relationship with Jesus and let him start to define. And so you really do see just the two sides of like, it's either going to be one voice or the other.
And I looked at my friends that were going through divorce and I was just like, why are y'all still crying? What you know, what?
Yeah.
You know, put your big girl pants on and let's go forward, you know?
Yeah.
But I did the same. I was just like, you know, okay, God, we got this. We're going to do this. And we're going back. Oh, let me go back to my son. My son's 17. He's graduating with honors.
Okay.
In Beta Club. He went to the Career Center and did the honors engineering classes. He has his certificate in that and his certificate in the pilot's department.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Like this kid, and he's going into the Air Force.
Okay.
He has his like life planned out, but it's amazing what happens when you follow God.
Right.
About what God will do.
Yeah, it's true.
Because, you know, if I had stayed in that situation and let that fear and that whatever control me and control him, and that's a lot of the same thing that was going on with me was also going on with him when I would leave. But, and let that fear and the devil control you. And it is the devil. I mean, it's, you know, I wasn't turning to God at that time. So when I started turning to God, it was like, okay, I got this. You know, it's a whole different outlook. And it was for my kids too.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So
what, this is random. What career center did he go to? Did he go to
Pickens County?
Did he come work on any of the houses here while he was in?
He did not.
Okay. You say career center. I was like, hold on. If this has a whole nother layer of connection, that's going to be wild.
Yeah. No, he did not. He was actually going to, a couple times, but it ended up like, with me doing senior care, he ended up getting a lot of volunteer hours with my patients.
Okay. Amazing.
So, you know.
Yeah.
And when it coincides with the day, it's like, well, one person can help this person or I can go with this team. So
Right. That's great.
He also, with his autism, he has that social anxiety. So he's a one-on-one person. So it's like he doesn't mingle a lot with people his own age. Okay. Now, he could sit down and talk to you forever.
Right.
But a kid his age.
Yeah, I understand that.
So,
I usually choose to do the same. I'm just kidding. That's awesome.
So practically, what did it look like when you left? Because I know, like you said, you turned to Jesus and he hardened your heart enough to like, were you able to walk away, not having that soft heart to stay? Practically, what did you do after that?
Okay, well, so I had a good support system. My parents were like, and my brothers, and they were all behind me, and which was amazing. I didn't think that they would be because one of my brothers is celebrating 25 years this week. I mean, this month. So, you know, I mean, they have a lot of, you know, strong morals and, but they were seeing, they weren't blind. So I went and prayed with our pastor's wife, and I love her to death. But she said two things. One, she said, there's two sides to every story, and which hit me like weird because at first I didn't understand what she was saying. And the second thing was, I just forgot. Okay, let's go back to that. Two sides to every story.
Yeah.
When I got back into my car, I was angry at that statement.
Right.
And I was just like, I was yelling at God. And because I talk to God that way, I believe that you can question, because if you don't question, then how's they going to answer you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I was beating the steering wheel. I think I about to break it. Now I'm just kidding. But I was mad. And I said, well, God, I don't understand. You know, she's been married forever. You know, why would she say something like that? And God said, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, I can't do nothing about it. But you know what? You can, because you can go out there and you can tell your story.
Right.
And you can lead people to their path and their next step. And so that's,
yeah, right.
That's what I started. The other thing was, I had to be a stay-at-home mom. And the reason I had to be a stay-at-home mom was because I wasn't allowed to work. And it wasn't that he stopped me, like he didn't forcefully stop me. He would just say things like, well, the boys need you, or he would break my car so I couldn't leave.
Okay.
So I had to stay at home. So you can't go from stay-at-home mom to a job.
Right.
Because there's no career. But the one thing you can do is become a caregiver, because I had taken care of so many elderly people in his life and in mine.
Right.
That I just kind of went with that, and I was like determined. I'm gonna get a job. I will,
Yeah.
I will struggle, but I will, I will make it. And I did. I just every day it was a different path, to where God was showing me that He was in control of my life. And I literally stopped worrying about everything. Like I was like, okay, here it is, God, you take it. I'm going to trust that you've got it. And I'm just got to go on with something else.
Sheesh.
Even to the part of finding a house. I was scared to move into apartments, just because people know your every coming and going.
Right.
And Max is a police officer.
Yeah.
So, there would be nothing for him to come and steal my kids.
Yeah. Right.
And they would let him. So I wanted a house, and for that reason. And I started fasting and praying for a house. And the house across from my mom and dad's come open. It had been rented for 30 years. The same people had lived there. And they decided they wanted to move back to Indiana. So I went and talked to the lady, and she's like, I'm not selling my house. And I was like, I want to rent it. And she was like, okay. Well, it was right around the time that the housing market jumped from like $600 a month to $1,000 a month.
Right.
And I was just like, and she went in half. And I didn't have to pay the $1,000
Okay.
a month. And I was just like, it was like God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was everything. And
Right.
that's just how I live my life. And if God says no, then I just try to accept it and just keep walking, because, there's too much bad in the world.
Yeah.
And if God has given us our peace and our comfort, then we should just go with it.
Sheesh.
So where did this faith come from?
Yeah.
Was
wow.
it from you leaving, or was it like when you met Jesus? Because also just tell about the time when you met Jesus too. Like kind of where did all this faith in you come from?
Well, I got saved when I was really young. I was 5. And I remember that, like there is no doubt in my mind that that's when I said Jesus is my Savior. And growing up in a Christian home, I learned to talk the talk, but never to walk the walk.
Yep.
And when I left, there was several different things that happened. There was the message about Peter that kind of showed me like my direction. There was a message about not trusting Jesus, and this preacher was talking about why don't you trust God? And I was just like, we do.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, you pray about it, and then you pick it right back up and you worry about it.
Okay.
And that's not trust.
Yeah.
And I was
right.
just like, you know what? That's right.
Yeah.
So, and then the boys were doing the 10 Commandments, and they were going through the 10 Commandments in children's church. And they come home one day and they said, Mom, we need to read the Bible every day. Okay, then let's do that. Mom, and it was just like the little things, and then I would pick up it and run with it.
Yeah.
And that just, I guess the determination of me leaving and just focusing solely on Jesus and that's where it come from. That's it. It was just, it was just really miraculous.
Yeah. I think also just the reality of like the way that the Spirit gifts us in, when you look at spiritual gifts in Scripture, like faith is my top one, and I'm going to go out on a limb after what you've just shared and say that it's probably yours too if you haven't taken the test. Yeah. But it truly is beautiful, and you get to see some of the reality of like living by faith and not by sight of like, I mean, you saw like walking away from a marriage that was painful and not knowing how you're going to get a house and all these things of ultimately being like, God's going to take care of it. So you're just going to be faithful in what you can do and the things that you can control. And then it's going to work out, or he's got something better, or he's got something different than you were expecting. And so I think that's amazing. Very, very, very cool. I feel, that was very encouraging. So great job. Thank you. All the thanks. I'm sitting here like literally, I don't even know what to follow up with because I'm like, it was also so good. What has it looked like growing, like as your son is getting closer to graduation, getting closer to Air Force, big decisions, all the things, like walking with him in his faith and your faith and, processing through what y'all went through, like all that kind of stuff?
The teenage years has gotten very teenager years for having to have two teenage boys. There's starting a date and all that stuff, and James is very, very different. He's my calm kid.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't want to socialize a whole lot. He's two girlfriends, and so it's not been like my other kid. It's a different girl every week.
Right.
Just, oh my goodness. Yeah. But as James gets, this past year has been really difficult for James because he's had to accept that he's leaving mom, and I can't push him to do everything, and I'm not going to be there to hold his hand, and trying to put, okay, God, you got him, but you're going to have to like step up because it's not going my speed. Yeah, right. I want it done now. But that's been a really, really tough battle for us. Just because James he's having a lot of issues because he doesn't have dad to talk to.
Right.
And that's been hard on him.
Of course.
But he was at a football game a couple months ago and kind of stood up to his dad, and I think that gave him some closure.
Okay.
And but he's already talked to Air Force, and I ain't doing it. You want that, you do it.
Yeah, right.
Because you have to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
So because when y'all get out of here, I'm buying an RV and I'm going to travel the world.
And also, that's incredible.
I've always wanted to do it.
Okay.
I love it.
I'm going to I'm a traveling caregiver, and I will travel the world and see it.
I love that. I think it's also just what you just said is very helpful. Of you get to a point where you just have to start being like, if you want this to happen, like you've got to step up to the plate. And
I did. I took their child support or whatever, and then it goes into a separate account. It does not go into my checking account, so it goes into a separate account. And the boys have to tell me what we're paying that week, and so that they have to do the budget from the child support.
Wow.
So it went into account, and they have to determine what we're paying this week and how we're transferring that money.
Wow.
And I started that when I left, and that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So that they would know that's how you deal with budgets, and you're already starting to pay.
Okay.
James was able to save enough through everything to buy a truck, and so that was it's just the small things that I've been trying to teach the kids. But I told them, I was like, with all of this, you're the men of the house.
Yeah.
I will not date until y'all get out of high school.
Wow.
And they were like, at all? And I was like, not unless somebody, God shoots a lightning bolt and hits us both in the head. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But because they were not cool with it. And anytime like a guy would message me on Facebook or whatever, and they would see it, they would be like, don't, and I don't have to. I don't need a man to divide me. But I told them, I was like, you'll have to step up.
Yeah.
You will be entitled. There will be certain chores that you have to do, and if you don't do them, then our house is going to look like a disaster hit it, and we'll probably have bugs and rats and mice and
wow.
And so they wash the dishes, they do all the chores, and
wow,
I work a job.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Wow,
very honorable. Wow, that's beautiful. Truly,
my kids are, and even the ladies. There's several ladies that's here that's like retired or whatever and don't have sons around or whatever. Yeah. And they will go and help them do their yard work or they've painted Lola's house. And, just
sweet.
Help all of them. So it's just, they're very good kids.
Yeah, with a very good mom.
Oh, thank you.
Like, let's make sure we give some credit there too. Like all of those things. I mean, that just helps with, I think, life perspective as a whole moving forward of giving them the chance to understand the weight. I think also to understand the weight of like what being a man and being like the head of a household and being like any kind of father responsibilities or whatever. I mean, that's whether they had it exampled for them or not. I think that having that instilled in them is like,
I've done pretty good to be the man in it.
That's. Yeah, no, not everybody can do that. So, this is me giving honor where it's due, 100%. So, well, that's awesome. As we're kind of getting near the end of our time here, one of the last, and I feel like every episode this season specifically, I've gotten to this question, and I have told people like I feel like pretty much everything you just said could be the answer to this question, truly, and that's just how God works these episodes out. Ultimately, is we see a very similar thing happening in each season. But I would just love to give you a chance, like if there's anything that you could or want to encourage anybody who is listening with that, like off the top of your head, like if you could give one thing that you would just want to.
Okay, we'll give two.
Great.
The first thing is for any woman that is going through a situation where you don't think you can get out of.
Yeah.
You are strong. You are beautiful. You are a beautiful child of God.
Yeah.
And you are so loved. And there's people around that will help you. Whether it's counselors that will help you get through your past, life coaches that will help you get through your future, people here at the Dream Center or anyone at any of the churches. They will hook you up with somebody. Or you can call me. Everybody has my phone number. I'm Robbie Level on social media. You can message me. The second thing is have a relationship with Jesus. Yeah. Teach your children to have a relationship. Don't care about what church you go to or what denomination you are.
Yep.
Just have a relationship with Jesus because he'll talk to you.
Yes.
He'll speak to you. He'll show you love. He'll show you that you're beautiful even when you're bald. And that's when God takes everything away. And you're bald and there's nothing to hide behind. You are so beautiful.
Yes.
Amazing.
Incredible. I feel like I've gotten chances here and there to talk with you and to, doing some stuff with Dream Big and getting to read some of your story from there. And I'm like, we talk about it all the time. Robbie's amazing. Like the whole Dream Center loves who you are, having you here, the impact that you've had. And especially after the last 30 minutes or so, I'm just like, I feel like I'm at a loss for words of, I'm like, I don't know how to respond to what you're saying in the best way. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm just thankful and truly like the vulnerability and the pureness of what God has done in your life and the deposit that he's given you is wildly, wildly beautiful. So thank you for sharing everything that you did and for letting us be a part of it and, being patient with me as I'm like, hi, come do this, please. So
yesterday I was just like, I like blonde out. I'll take the job. And then he was like, hey, you coming? I was like, oh man.
Yeah, right. No, that's great. It truly, the timing always works out. Even the fact that like you have crochet after this is over and like have class tonight. And that just feels super special and really beautiful. So just thank you for doing this and thank you for being with us and telling us all these things. And I know that it's going to be such a beautiful listen to everybody who's here. So just thank you. We love you so much, truly.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode and we will see you guys on the podcast next week.